Hello everybody, it's Jenn, Scrapbena Creations. I'm back with 4 more cards from the Christmas Flavor of the Month card kit. There's a still photo of card number 1. So I'm using this pattern paper. I had already used it on one of my other cards, so I had a piece missing out of it, but I'm going to fix it because I'm doing a roof here. I'm just showing you I cut this out myself and I just cut out a triangle. The cutout triangle piece, I flipped it over, cut straight down the edge on the other side so that they were even. Then I used my stitched rectangle die from Lawn Fawn for the pattern paper that looks like the sky with the snow flowing in it, as well as this piece here with the roof. So I've gone ahead and stamped my sentiment, Merry Christmas to all and to all a good night. Heat embossed that, and now I'm using some Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink to just add a little bit of shading. I want it to look like a white snow-covered roof, but that it has some shading and you could tell that perhaps it is a gray shingled roof. That's the look I was going for anyways. So I'm just going to add this all over the panel, and then I'm going to move on to creating the card panel. So I'm going to adhere this onto the piece of paper right straight across the bottom, and here you'll see, you'll never know that I had a chunk of it missing. I'm going to add my little Santa Claus here. I'm going to use my X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut around his glove. I want to put the little hot chocolate mug in his hand, kind of like he's been down visiting one of the homes leaving Christmas presents and has come up from the chimney with his hot chocolate and some cookies. So I'm going to add some 3M foam tape to him to pop him up so he's at a higher dimension than the roof and the sky. I'm going to add the little cookie plate to the top of his hand. Lucky Santa has the whole plate. I'm going to use my snow marker here. This is by Marvy, and I've had this for a couple years now, and I love it, but I'm not that great at using it. I've used way too much here, but I'm just kind of going with it, and it does turn out really cute, and I love the puffiness that it gives when you heat it with your heat tool. So I will show you that. I'm just kind of laying some snow along the roof, underneath the chimney, and then I'm going to do the snow on top of the chimney here. Then I'll get out my heat tool, and you can see this kind of fluff up and come to life. I really love the effect. I just wish I could get better at knowing how much of the liquid you need in order for it to work properly, but you can see it's become really nice and fuzzy. I did get this little splatter, so I waited until I heated that up so I could just pick it off with my X-Acto knife. I am going to use some of the red cardstock that came in the kit for my card base. All of the cards are A2 size at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm using some of the frosted lace stickles that came in my kit to go over the top of the snow. I thought this would give it some really nice glitter and shine to it. I also wanted to do it because it was quite fluffy, and I thought if it hardened on there, then maybe the snow would not kind of come down. I did go back and reheat that so that it was flush. You could see here when I embossed it that it raised up a little. So we're already on to card number 2. Again, my stitched rectangle die is back out. I just cut a white panel slightly smaller than the full size of my panel or my card. I'm using this makeup brush here. I've been seeing these floating around as ways to get a very light background, and I'm using some Tumble Glass Distress Oxide just to give a little bit of a hint of blue to the background of this card. I grabbed some wood grain paper from my stash to make the floor, and I did cut that with the stitched rectangle as well, so it would have the same stitching around the edges. I'm going to add this pattern paper to the back of the card. I'm going to trim that off. I don't quite get it all the first trim, so I am going to bring my cutter bee scissors just to cut up that one little spot where I didn't quite get it flush with the card base. Then I'll add the panel. These are all fairly clean and simple cards. I'd colored up my images prior to doing the video because I'd colored them in my first 4 cards. And I do have that on my YouTube channel if you're interested in checking that out. So I'm just gonna have the Christmas tree and the little Rudolph and Elf characters kind of dancing by the tree, making it as though they're decorating the tree for Christmas. I'm going to stamp the sentiment "Deck the Halls." I felt like that fit perfectly in that top left-hand corner. So cute. And then just some finishing touches. I'm going to add some glossy accents to the ornament, the Rudolph nose, and then the baubles on the Christmas tree. And that card is done. Moving on to card number 3, I'm going to be using the little reindeer here. So I used another rectangle stitch die, and I'm also using the scalloped die, which is a Blueprints by My Favorite Thing die. Love that die. I'm stamping at the sentiment "Let's Play Reindeer Games." This sentiment I hadn't used yet, and it inspired me to create this card. So I'm just heat embossing the sentiment, and then I'm going to adhere that to the card base, which again is some of, to this card panel, which is some of the cardstock that came in the kit. And now I'll adhere this panel to my card base. I thought using a simple white card base was fitting for this card because there's lots of red and white, and I wanted it to mimic the peppermints that I colored up for the card. So I thought it would be fun to make it look like this little reindeer is actually kicking the peppermint like a ball. Like I was kind of thinking that they had a little rubber ball that looked like a peppermint, and just the positioning of his legs, I thought it lent well to making it look like he was playing ball with the peppermint. So I'm going to add some shading to the bottom of this card, just using my C1 marker and then blending that out with the colorless blender. And then I'm going to come in with my Memento black marker, and I'm just going to add 3 really little lines coming out from his foot to the peppermint to mimic that the peppermint is in motion. And that card's done. So for the 4th and final card, I'm going to do a more elegant card. So here I've used that same die again, and of course the rectangle dies, and I'm using some of the pattern paper. I did bring in some gold foil paper from my stash for this card. Now I'm going to create the ornaments. I'm using Lucky Clover, peeled paint, and bundled sage. And I'm just adding all 3 colors onto this stamp. I'm going to stamp that, and I'm going to hold it in place for a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing over again. The nice thing about Distress Oxide inks is that they do layer over each other, and I love the color that these 3 gave. So just before the final layer, I did use a paper towel to wipe up that ink because it was really sitting heavily on the stamp. Now I'm going to stamp the little decorations in the Christmas ornament, as well as the little string with the bow. I wanted it to be longer than what it was giving me, so I just turned it over and stamped it on top of the first string that I had. Now I'm going to heat emboss this with some gold embossing powder. So this is fine detail gold embossing powder. It did stick to the left-hand side of the ornament a little bit, but I actually liked the effect that it gave. I thought it brought a little bit more shine to the card. I'm just going to clean this up. I didn't use my embossing buddy to get rid of the static on that top part, so it stuck a little bit, but I cleaned that up with a toothbrush. A paintbrush. And now I'm going to assemble the card. So I'm going to put this pattern paper down. It's really pretty. It has pine cones and pine needles and an ornament hanging down. And I'm going to adhere that to the gold foil. Then I'm going to use this pattern paper as the main paper for this card. I'm not going to use any foam adhesive here. I'm just going to lay it straight onto the card so it's nice and flat and easy to mail. I did do the second ornament the night before, and you can see it dried wonderful. The Distress Oxides do take a bit to dry, so the one that I just created on screen will actually fade out a little bit more as it dries. So I'm just trying to figure out how I want these placed on the card. And I'm going to stamp the sentiment Merry Christmas to you. I'm going to use my Versamark here, and then I'm going to heat emboss that in gold as well, just so it ties in with the embossing that I've already done. I probably should have done this before I put it on the card base. It did warp a little, but I just added a little bit of glue to the bottom right-hand corner, and it was fine. I made sure to heat up my heat tool prior to doing this so that it would heat up fast and there would be minimal warping. So once I get this down, I am going to adhere the ornaments on. So pretty. I loved this kit. It sold out super fast. I think it was less than 48 hours. So hopefully you were lucky enough to get your hands on one. I did want to do some more cards because a number of you had written in the comments of the first video that you really wanted to see me work with the kit some more, so I thought I'd do a few more cards for you. So let me know what you think, and I will see you soon. Thanks for always hanging out with me, leaving amazing comments. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic day. I am going to show you all 4 cards here before I say a final goodbye. So here's card number 1 again, with Santa in the chimney with his goodies, the little reindeers decorating the Christmas tree and the elf, the little Rudolph playing with his peppermints, and the ornaments. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.